Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Sugar Mama's Fire Play podcast. I am financial planner Canna Campbell. This morning, we are talking with a nurse who has used her money mindset, her powerful money mindset, to get out of approximately $15,000 worth of credit card debt and $47,000 worth of student debt. Now, before we begin, a very quick reminder that all of my content, blog posts, YouTube videos, podcasts, anything you see on my Instagram account, it is always general advice only. So if you ever see something that you think, oh, I wonder if that's right for me, I should go and get advice, go and talk to a qualified and licensed financial planner. All right, Allie, thank you so much for coming on to Sugar Mama's Fire Play. I greatly appreciate it. We're speaking all the way from North Carolina, is that right?
Yeah, Raleigh, North Carolina.
Oh, wow. And you are a nurse?
Yes, I work in the pediatric ICU.
Oh, wow. Well, I am dying to hear about all your, money mindset techniques and habits and attitudes, because it is so important that you are switched on, you're going to take it seriously, and you are going to really embrace change for the better. And, obviously it's so important to back up. You can't go and sit under a tree and meditate money into your life. I massively believe in the law of attraction and manifestation and mindset, and you become what you think about. Napoleon Hill's book is one of my favorite books, and it needs to be backed up by practical steps and hacks and actions. But mindset is important. That's where it all begins, with the mindset. Would you agree with that?
Definitely. And that's the first step that I even teach when I do mentor people is how to change their mindset. Because if you don't change your mindset, you're not going to change your habits with money at all. And so really everyone has a story around money. Just like we have stories about everything. So growing up, your money mindset or your story around money or your relationship with money is pretty locked in by the time you're 5 or 6 years old. Because it's dependent upon how you grow up, where you grow up, what your parents say about money, what you hear about money on the TV. So you really have to work hard to change that, especially if you don't start until you're 30, like I did. Yeah. So it's a lot of years of negative talks about money. So.
Yeah. Look, can we start with you? I want to hear your story. I wholeheartedly believe in everything that you're saying. It's so important. I want to pick you, and obviously people can reach out to you for your coaching, which I think is a fantastic idea. But can you tell me about where did your story begin? How did you allow your money story to evolve and grow to become healthier?
So I actually grew up in Southern California, in a pretty affluent area. But my parents were divorced when I was 12 years old. And I moved in with my mom, and my mom was a nurse, or still, I guess she just retired from nursing. And so she worked very hard for us. She would work a lot of overtime, and I saw her use credit cards, but then never saw her pay them off, which I know she paid them off, but I just never saw it as a kid. Yeah. And my dad always made really good money. But I didn't live with my dad, and he would use gifts or, rewards as things that we would get as kids to kind of show his love. And
that was his
I also
love language.
Swam. Yes. And so I also swam as a kid and swam in college. And so I knew the only way that I was going to get college paid for, or partially paid for, was if I got a scholarship in athletics. And so I was able to do that, but I also had to take out student loans because it was only really paying for my tuition. It wasn't paying for my room and board because I was living in San Diego. So the high school that I actually went to was a very, very rich high school. I got a scholarship to go there. So there was a lot of money there. And so I kind of felt that need to catch up or do. Yeah. And so I think I learned that very young, and my mom loved shopping. My dad loved shopping. So we kind of just used shopping as a coping mechanism and as something that was fun, or when we were happy, we would shop. When we were sad, we would shop. So I really just adapted this mindset of, I'll just pay it off later, or, I'll get a good job after college. And so I got my first credit card in college. And I kind of believed it was free money, and I didn't really understand much about saving or, preparing for the future. And I didn't really have anyone talking to me about that either. I think my mom mentioned I should be saving or whatever, but I never really listened because as, a college student, you're like, whatever, I'll learn it later.
We never listen to people we love. No. We won't take on their advice, no matter what subject matter is. I'm really defensive when my partner, Tom, tries to tell me something about like fitness or, the body mechanics, because he's a physio. I'm like, oh, whatever. But then if someone neutral or a friend or like a neighbor or someone like that says, oh, you should do this. I'm like, oh, really? Wow. And I'm like, why? It's the same, vice versa with money. I'm like, Tom, you should maybe do this. It's like, oh, rubbish, whatever. But then someone else will say that to me, like, yeah, mate, that's a good idea. Okay. So you're spending on a credit card, dealing with it, thinking, oh, look, I'll deal with it later. I'll pay it off when I get a better job or a pay rise or graduate or so forth.
So I eventually decided I wanted to go to nursing school. And so that was a second degree. So I got most of my first degree paid for, but I came out, I think, with $15,000 of student loan debt and some credit card debt out of my first degree. And then my second degree, I moved back home with my parents, which was working, but I spent all of that money. So instead of saving it or using it to pay for my school, I was like, oh, I'll get a job in California. And the starting rate as a nurse in California is way higher than anywhere else in the country. So I just assumed I would get a job there. It's almost double in comparison to other states. And so I went through a really bad breakup when I finished nursing school. And I was like, I want to try somewhere else. I want to go to a different state. And I didn't realize what the pay cut was going to be. So I applied to a bunch of different, they're called nurse residency programs. So as a new graduate nurse, you get hired into a unit and you get trained and they give you classes and stuff like that into how to become a nurse. And so obviously they don't talk about money. They don't talk about living on your own or, moving anywhere. And so I really wasn't prepared to pick up my life and move. And I moved from Southern California to Raleigh, North Carolina, almost 7 years ago, actually, and was only making about $21 an hour. And I didn't have anything saved. I had a car that was about to break down. I had $15,000 of credit card debt. And I really just had this terrible mindset around money. And I believed that I would always be bad with money. I never saved. I would pick and choose my bills at the beginning of when I first moved out here, which bills I was going to pay, which ones I wasn't going to. And then I started to work overtime because once you hit a certain amount of months of experience of being a nurse, you can pick up overtime. And so I think one of the mindset, I guess, one of the bad habits or one of the kind of mindsets that we have as shift workers or anyone who can pick up overtime, or if you're an entrepreneur, can just pick up more clients is, oh, I'll just make more money. And it's never, what can I do with the money I already have? It's always, oh, I'll just make more. Yeah. And so I think that was one of the biggest shifts I made initially was I was shopping a lot when I was bored. And I just believed I would always be a shopaholic. And so that was one of the first things that I really changed when I really started diving into personal development and also money was I don't always have to do this. I can change who I am. I can change what hobbies and habits I use to kind of deal with what I'm dealing with instead of, oh, I had a bad shift or, oh, I had a bad day. Let me go to the mall. Instead, I would go on a walk or I would, read a book or call a friend or something. And so I think just implementing those type of things too, even though they're very small, is very much related to money if you are doing those things that are impulse spending and all that kind of stuff. So just kind of starting there and just looking at what your triggers are is really important.
Absolutely. I can't, it's funny, the other day I was looking at something online and I really wanted to buy it. And I was so tempted because at lockdown, we're just not spending any money at the moment. And I went to go and buy it and I was like, no, just hold tight and just sit on it for 24 hours. And I can't remember what that thing was that I really wanted to go and buy. Like I was looking at various different things online, in the middle of the night whilst I was feeding. And I cannot tell you, I don't know what it was. It may have been a jumper, it may have been a shirt or a dress. It was definitely an item of clothing, but I cannot remember. I'm like, wow, I was going to hand over $100 or $200 to buy something that I actually really don't care with. Like learning to sit and just pause and come back to it is so important. And also that trigger can be very powerful, but learning to sit through the trigger. And I think it's a lot shorter when you can sit through it than what you would think. You think, oh, it's going to sit through days of torture and discomfort and pain, but actually it moves a lot faster than you think.
And I think a lot of people want that instant hit of dopamine or want that instant gratification. That's why Amazon is so big in the States. Do you guys have Amazon?
We do, and it's becoming increasingly popular, which is very concerning.
Because it's instant. And so I feel like a lot of times, so one of the things that I do with my people anyone that I work with is implementing, like you did, the 24-hour rule. I would say 24 or 48 hours. You can put it in your cart, you can do whatever. And if you still want that thing in 24 to 48 hours, if you have money set aside, go ahead and buy it. But a lot of times you won't want it anymore because it's not that instant hit of dopamine. So you need to go find something else that's going to give you that same satisfaction, maybe shopping would. And for me, it would just be, I'm bored. Let me go walk around the mall, or I don't have anyone to go hang out with. Let me go do this. And so I think just kind of, creating new relationships with people, finding new hobbies, doing new things, instead of going back to my old habit of shopping or online shopping or doing whatever, was really huge for me, because I was like, I don't have to sit and spend this money. And then I would feel bad. So just kind of changing even my identity of being a shopaholic, or someone who uses shopping as, I shop when I'm bored, or, the stupid saying like, yeah, shopping is my cardio, or like shopping is my hobby. Like, it's not a hobby. It's something that a lot of people joke about, but it's, to me, I feel like, yes, you can spend money. Yes, you can spend money on things that you value. But if we just shop to shop, it takes the fun out of it.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I have in my budget a certain amount of money per month, which I can spend on clothing. And I don't spend it every single month, and I can roll it forward to the next month if I want to buy something really special. But I find if I stretch out my shopping, and I'm not a big shopper at all because I incorporate a minimalistic philosophy into my life, but I find that when I do go and buy something for myself, the dopamine hit, that reward, is so big because it's so stretched out. It lasts for so long. Whereas if I was just constantly shopping and buying, that dopamine hits short and sharp, but it's gone, and I'm left thirsty for that hit again. So stretching it out, you get a much healthier, more sustainable hit of the dopamine, I find.
Definitely. And also, kind of like you, I'm not super minimalist, but I also figured out what I like to wear. And so just talking about clothes, what I put on my body now is so much more flattering, and I actually feel good about what I'm wearing. Like, I was talking to someone when I went out to dinner a couple of days ago, who's one of my friends, and she goes, oh, I bought 3 dresses to go to Las Vegas. And I used to be that person. I used to be the person who would buy a new outfit for every event that I went to. And now I feel like I value all the stuff that I have because I wait for it, and because I set aside the money for it, and because I created habits of me making my money work for me. So putting into savings, putting aside money to spend, opening those investment accounts. And so I feel good about my money. So then I'm like, okay, this extra money that I have, or this money that I've set aside, I feel really good spending it. And so I think just that mindset shift too, I've already put my money to work. So now I can use that money that I've set aside to buy things I actually value, is super important.
Can you share with me all, I guess, your top 5 hacks as to how you have shifted and improved your mindset? Because I think there are so many people out there who are so desperate to do this. And I don't want to give away, obviously, all of your IP, because this is what your coaching course is about. But I would, for anyone who's listening out there going, look, I know I need to get better with my finances. I know that I've got to do a budget. I know that I've got to spend less. I know I've got to get some financial goals and set my accounts up. But Kenna and Allie are both saying here, I need to fix my mindset first. Where does one begin? And what are the 5 quick things someone can do to quickly shift into that headspace where they start to get an inkling of how important this is and they actually feel inspired to keep going?
So the first thing that you need to do is you need to figure out what are the stories that you have around money. So how do you feel about money? How do you feel when you spend it? How do you feel when you look at your bank account? You can journal on, what did your parents say about money? What did you learn about money growing up? All of those things feed into your money story. So I always have everyone write their money story, because it's very interesting to see what comes up, because from there you change your mindset and you say, this is how I actually want to feel. One of the things, and then you create affirmations based off of that. So you would write your money story. Then you would write how you want to feel about money. So how do you want to feel when you spend money? How do you want to feel when you get money? So I always get really excited when I pay people for things. So one of the things that I've really implemented this year is self-care. So I get facials, I've started getting Botox sometimes. I get my nails done sometimes. I get my hair done. And so I get really excited to pay these people. Whereas before I would be like, oh gosh, I have to spend all this money on this stuff. And, money is just leaving. And so now I get really excited. So one of the things that I do in addition to all that is I get really excited when money goes out of my account. So I just am very thankful, even if bad things happen. So my car needed a new transmission a couple of weeks ago and I had to use a rental car. And normally that would have been a huge issue for me because only half of it was covered. And I was like, gosh, I'm just so thankful that I was able to have that money to pay for it, because before I wouldn't have been able to do that. So just practicing, in addition, gratitude, and also just getting really excited when you're able to pay for things. So even if I find a penny on the ground, I get really excited. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's money everywhere. So just, I guess, getting really excited for any type of money, whether it's going in or coming out. And that would be kind of after you kind of look at what your money story is too. And then I would also say, I practice gratitude. Gratitude is something that I have anyone who does mentorship with me do. They have daily gratitude. And it's something that I had a mentor show me to do. And it really changed my mindset around money, in addition to changing how I felt and going from a more negative person, I guess, to a more positive person, was just any type of gratitude. So before, I think I would do 3 gratitudes. And now I'm up to, I think I do 10 a day now. And I do it right before I go to bed. They can be money related. They can be, anything related. But if you are trying to change your money mindset, I would definitely do some that are money related.
It's amazing how much, the gratitude helps. And I really believe money shouldn't hold us back. Like the other day I got, and I've previously shared this, I got a speeding ticket and I was mortified, but I was like, hang on, you know what? This is why I have a life account. I have emergency money because that's what it's there for. So I immediately caught myself out and went, no, that's pay the bill. Be grateful you've got the money in your account. It's not a huge bill. You can quickly and easily move back on with your life and focus back onto the positive things. And it was a really great, it made me feel really good about myself. I felt really responsible, not only for paying the bill on time and having emergency money, but I felt really responsible from a personal growth perspective. I was like, wow, I'm not letting that impact me. I'm not letting that ruin my day. I'm not letting that think, well, I'm not going to achieve this goal, but, this week or this month because of that bill. Just, it was water off a duck's back. I was able to move on. And that's so important about that sense of that awareness and that gratitude.
I think we miss things too, because when we're so focused on what we don't have, or when we are so focused on, the bad things about maybe you were bad with money before and now you're wanting to be better with money. If we're so focused on how bad we are with money, or we're so focused on us not reaching our goals or the little things that happen, I think we miss too the good things. So did you contribute to your savings? Is your net worth growing? Were you able to pay for your speeding ticket? All those kind of things. So one of the really big things that actually really helped me pay off my debt was I changed my mindset around my debt too. So many people don't go into debt because they want to go into debt. They go into debt because there's a reason why they needed to take out the student loans, to use the credit card. So what's really important is for you to focus more on what the debt allowed you to do. So reframing that mindset from, oh my gosh, I'm so terrible with money, I'm in X amount of dollars of debt, and just saying thank you to the credit card, to the student loans, whatever, for being there for me when I needed it. But I'm going to be better from now on and start saving, have an emergency fund, do a sinking fund for something that maybe I may need. And really just creating habits to where you won't have to be in that situation again. And so I think that's one of the biggest mindset shifts I had was, thank you for allowing me to do all of these things that I was able to do, where I wouldn't have had the money if I didn't use the credit card. So just kind of looking at that in that light, instead of maybe beating yourself up for your past mistakes.
Well, we become what we think about. And also being grateful for the lesson, being grateful that we're learning about money and we're learning about the awareness of money and the power of your mindset and the importance of having a positive attitude and a healthy habit system. That being grateful for the message, alone is incredibly helpful. And I think a great catalyst for a breakthrough or a shift to a better place with money. What are a couple of habits that you have employed in your own finances from a practical perspective that helped you pay off this $15,000 of debt and this $47,000 worth of student debt, which I will not point out is actually in US dollars as well. So incredible.
Thank you. So one of the things that I did was I automated my savings because I also saved a good amount of money around the same time. So I gave myself the permission to maybe not be as fast with paying off my debt as I wanted to be, because I also wanted to make sure that I was not going to go back into debt. So even though maybe I had a good amount saved, I was still saving a certain percentage because I wanted to create that habit, because most people don't have a habit of saving because they've never created it. So if we just save a little bit and then stop at a certain point and then pay off all this debt, you're not going to create that habit of saving. So for me, I wanted to create that habit of saving, and I wanted every paycheck I get or everything that I get paid for, I always want to save a percentage of it. And so I think just starting that habit and automating that right away, and then just increasing it as my debt went down, was very helpful for me. And so from there, I also was able to, pay for other things and didn't have to go back into debt because I had created that habit of saving.
How did you work at that percentage?
So I started at 10% and I knew I had an emergency fund, and I'm like, okay, this is kind of what I need to save to get to $10,000 in the year and a half that I was engaged for. And so as my debt went down, and as I was working some other jobs, I would save just a certain percentage of it. But I always tell people at least start at 10%. And if you can do that. And then from there, I would just increase it. And I think right now I'm maybe at 20 or 25% because my living expenses have gone up because I'm now separated. So I still save a percentage, even though it's maybe not as high as I would want to. I also automated my we have a Roth IRA here, so that's it's like the
equivalent of our superannuation.
Yeah, so I automate that every month too. So I think automation really helped me, one, pay off debt, and two, really kind of stick to my budget, because I didn't have so much money in my account that I was like, oh, I can do whatever I want with this money. Automation really kept me on track to pay off debt, because what I did with my debt was I knew my minimum payment. And so here in the States, they do income-based repayment. And so it's a percentage of your income that you would pay. And I did that because I knew that I wanted to pay them off early. And I knew if I needed to take a break or needed to save extra money, I wanted that lower payment.
Yeah.
So I always tell people too to get a lower payment, because you can always pay more, but it's nice if you have something come up, you can be more flexible if you have a lower payment. And it's why, yeah. And so basically I knew what I had to pay. And then from there, I knew whatever I had left over from my bills and my savings, I would throw to my debt. And so I automated that the day I got paid. So I was like pretty good about looking at my paychecks the day before, and I'd be like, okay, this is where this is going. This is where this is going. So like I had a place for everything to go to. And then probably my spending money was where I had the wiggle room. So I think just being flexible with that part, like maybe the groceries, gas, spending money, but having everything else automated and have it accounted for was really helpful for me, because I didn't want to make everything so rigid. But I wanted to make sure those things, my goals were to pay off debt and save money. I wanted to make sure that I was still achieving my goals. So I think being a little more rigid with, this is going here was also very helpful. And
can I ask you on the topic of money mindset, can you share some of your financial goals? Obviously, you don't need to share the numbers because they're very private, but, I always tell people, it's so important to have a financial goal, but a lot of people are like, well, what sort of goal do I have? Like, can you give, would you mind sharing some of your goals? Because you've obviously now debt-free and you've got some savings set up, and you've touched on that you have an investment plan in place. Can you share with me what some of your passions are around going from a space where you've gone from debt to having savings, and then the next, I guess, level up from there?
So probably one of the coolest things was which I recommend everyone track their net worth, because it's really cool, especially if you have debt and you have a negative net worth, to get to a positive, because that was like the coolest thing for me. And I was talking to my mom a couple of days ago, and I was like, I'm just so proud of myself because I've gone through now a divorce, and my net worth has stayed positive, and I have 2 dogs, and I have like a lot of other goals. And I was also very lucky because I was able to save. I wasn't really spending a lot of money, and I also have my business on the side too. So I was able to transition from being married to being on my own pretty well. And not everyone is able to do that. And so I think one of my goals actually is to hit 100K net worth, hopefully soon. That's like one of my big goals.
Yeah.
And then from there, next year, I'd love to buy next year or maybe the next year. So travel nursing is really big in the States. And I've talked to many travel nurses, and they say that housing is very unaffordable, and that people price gouge because they make a lot of money. And so in talking to a lot of travel nurses, they said, this area that I live in is great for travel nurses. I think there's 5 hospitals. So it would be a great market to have a rental property. So I would love to have a rental property for travel nurses. That would be one of my other financial goals that I have. And then also obviously buying my own house at some point, because I owned a house with my ex-husband. So those are kind of as a single woman, newly single woman, those are kind of my big financial goals in the next couple of years.
I'm someone who's been divorced. I've actually been divorced twice. And I can't stress how important it is for women to take control of their own personal finances. Of course, you take care of the family finances as well, but it is so important. You never know what might happen. And it's so important to know how to stand on your own 2 feet financially, know how to manage your money, know how to manage it the correct way, but also how to grow it. You never want to be reliant on any person or any institution, or be forced into a situation that you're not happy with because of lack of financial knowledge and understanding. How do you feel about having goals of your own? Because they're really exciting, empowering goals you've got. And how do you feel about your future?
Honestly, I'm really excited. The last year has been very, very difficult for me because divorce is something I never thought was going to happen to me. And honestly, I look back every day and talking about the gratitude. I'm so thankful I went through what I went through, and I was so terrible with money when I first moved out here, because if I wouldn't have gone through that, I would have never learned about money. I would have never changed my mindset, and I wouldn't have been in the situation that I was in when we got separated. So I'm honestly thankful every day that I went through what I went through. And I always kind of wondered why, as a nurse, I got so into personal finance and why I only really wanted to work with women. And it was definitely much more clear after I went through everything I went through that I was like, oh, this is why this was the lesson. And so I just think a lot of people think it doesn't happen to you. So it is really exciting to go from having some joint goals, I guess, with someone, to now kind of reaching goals on my own. I'm excited to share more. So in the state that I live in, you have to be separated for a year. And so we're not technically divorced yet. So I'm excited to share more about my goals too once the divorce is final as well. Because it is exciting being like a single woman and growing your net worth and talking about money and being excited about money. And so I think I'm really excited.
Absolutely. Look, I've done a podcast where I explain how, Tom and I do our finances together, and we have our own separate individual goals as well as joint goals. And it's essential. And I would want my 2 daughters and my son, of course, I want them to know how to manage money, but know how to stand on their own 2 feet so they can handle any situation that comes their way, and it never is detrimental to their financial well-being. Look, well, thank you so much for coming on to True Mama's Fire Play. I greatly appreciate it. For anyone that's listening right now that would like to chat with Allie or find out about her coaching program and her money mindset techniques, I will link in the podcast description her Instagram account. And, of course, you can get in touch with her about her business and how she helps people, because I think it is so important, if you're really serious about getting ahead financially, that you start with the internal work first because it's going to make the process a hell of a lot faster, so much more enjoyable, and you will become, I promise you, addicted to the growth and the self-discovery that lies ahead of you. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to this morning's podcast. If you enjoyed this, please make sure you take a moment to leave a rating and a review. And of course, please make sure you are following me on Instagram at Sugar Mama TV. And of course, you're always welcome to peek inside my crazy house at Canna Campbell Official.